Hello, we are going live here on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook. We're adding Facebook in today, and so hoping that that will be a good mix for everybody. Let me know what business questions, what life questions you're dealing with right now. What would help you as we go through the different challenges that you have in front of you. Um, what is holding you back? What would you like to what would you like to overcome today? I'd love it if you'd let me know in the comments section. Looks like I am live, so but it's not showing everything else. So, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? What would you like to overcome in your hmm, okay. So, I'm running that off of an older computer, so it's giving me a little bit of trouble. I'm going to restart that. But so glad that you are here, and I'd love to hear what you guys are working on. What challenges are you coming up against while I'm waiting for people to show up and for things to kind of kick off? One of the things that is absolutely so critical, so crucial for each and every one of us as we interact with the um, as we design our lives is that we need to have margin, we need to have balance in our lives. We need to set ourselves up for success rather than failure. And too often, as entrepreneurs, we don't give ourselves any margin. We spend our entire life jumping from one success to another success, and in some seasons, one failure to another failure. But it always comes back, it keeps coming back down to what do we find our value in? What do we find our self worth in? And over and over again, I see that as Christians, as believers, we are not called to have our identity tied in our ability, our success, or anything like that, but instead that we are called and given the opportunity to be intentional about our um, about choosing to rest in God, because when our identity is wrapped up, when it's tied up in what we accomplish, then the only way to feel good about ourselves is to accomplish more, to work harder, to strive for more. And those are good things. But when they become God things, when they become the source of our identity, then they become bad things. And I know this from my own personal life. When I first entered the workforce, I was working usually 80, 90 hours a week, got up to 120 at one point, and I ran myself ragged. I almost ran myself into an early grave. The the doctors were actually quite surprised that I was not in a diabetic coma because my body had stopped producing cortisol, the stress hormone. And in doing that, my body tried to compensate with sugar and it just freaked out. I had been working 7 days a week, been working anywhere from 80 to 120-hour weeks. And in all of that stuff, I never really slowed down. I never really got to rest in the presence of God. I did lots of things that were focused on worship, focused on growing as an individual. But when it comes down to it, everything that I was doing was based in identifying my value, identifying my self worth, identifying who I was and who I could be by trying to outdo God, by trying to be my own God, by trying to be my own source of comfort, my own savior, my own provider. And in the time that my I was newly married at the time, and when everything went downhill, but as I grew, as my wife and I realized we needed to do life differently, then we began to realize that the um, the way that we were doing things wasn't going to work. That the way that we were living life was not a maintainable pace, and that part of our worship was actually learning to rest and rejuvenate and to take time away to step back and say, all right, God, I trust you to handle this when I'm not able to. God, I trust you to be the provider that you promised to be. God, I trust you to keep your promises. And we started taking a regular Sabbath. We started saying, all right, we have to have a family and God day. Not a day where I was preaching and dealing with all of the different issues that were going on, but where we would specifically take time to seek God and to relax, to refresh in His presence and in each other's presence, to build our family. And the outflow of that is now we take family vacations, at least twice a year. We schedule those, and this last week we had a it was the anniversary of when I proposed to my wife, and we went and we got a hotel in Chicago, and we spent the vast majority of the weekend just looking out the window at the city of Chicago, which um, as much as I love tons of cities, Chicago is my favorite city, and being downtown um, brings me energy, which is I know it's weird for most of you, but it was something that I really enjoy, and it was a place where Christine and I were able to relax and refresh and be intentional about prioritizing our relationship. A lot of it was just cuddling and talking and playing games and reading books and doing doing Bible and prayer time together as a couple, where it wasn't about how we were serving everyone else, but it was being present together with each other. And it was just such a huge, wonderful blessing for the two of us to come together to worship God, to grow together, to rest and rejuvenate together. And so while we're looking at how can we be better business people, how can we be better entrepreneurs, one of the major things that you and I need to take into consideration is what what does margin, what does space, what does rejuvenation and Sabbath and family time, what does that look like in the life that we create for ourselves? Not just working to create a life, but actually planning and putting those things in. I encourage you, if you don't regularly schedule time to spend with your family, with your spouse, be sure to prioritize that now. Be sure to incorporate that into who you are and the life that you are building. Because when it's all said and done, we will be most satisfied in the relationships we built and the families we led, even more than the companies we built or the projects we designed. And so I really hope that this is an encouragement to you to prioritize your your rest, your rejuvenation, your family time. One of my mentors said something early on to me. It was in the context of vocational ministry and pastoring, but he said, if you lose your ministry, you can keep your family. But if you lose your family, you also lose your ministry. And it even now, in talking about business, I'm reminded that the more important thing is my family. The reason that I am doing this business stuff is, yes, to create, yes, to add value, yes, to be a blessing to others, but especially one of the key components is to care for and to provide for my family. And if I build a business but neglect my family, then I've neglected the more important thing. So I hope this has been an encouragement and a challenge to you, that you have been willing, that you're willing to think through and prioritize creating space in your life, so you're not just running from meeting to meeting where you're always late because everything was scrunched too close together, and where you prioritize getting away and resting and rejuvenating and trusting God to do the things that you can't do, to do the things that you are actively saying, God, I trust you. I really do hope that that has been an encouragement in this time. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I haven't seen any yet, but um, I also kind of went off on my teaching side of things and didn't keep saying, hey, throw your questions in the chat, throw your questions in the chat. What what are you coming up against? What do you need? to prioritize for your business, for your family, for the life that you want to build. I'd love to help you however I'm able to. God is so good and so encouraging, and I really look forward to continuing to help you. If there aren't any questions right now, I, I pray that the teaching that I've given is an encouragement. God bless.